Hey, good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to sunny Las Vegas. Welcome to the 41st Annual International Pizza Expo. Yeah, let's have some enthusiasm this morning. I love seeing all the beautiful, smiling pizza faces out there. Thank you for getting up early, way too early Vegas time to be here with us. My name is Jeremy White. I'm the editor of Pizza Today magazine, for those of you who do not know me. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet because even though I got a pretty face, you're not here to see me. I'm very excited to introduce our keynote speaker today. Lovely's 50/50 in Portland, Oregon is one of the most innovative pizzerias in the country. If you haven't been to Portland, it's a great pizza city. You really should get there. And Lovely's 50/50 should probably be your first stop. You may have seen the Chef's Table episode on Netflix. If not, you need to go watch it. Also, our speaker today is a semifinalist for a James Beard Award in the Outstanding Chef category. So that should tell you a little something about the chops that she has in the kitchen. Pretty impressive. All right, having said that, please be very enthusiastic and extend a very warm pizza welcome to the one and only Sarah Minnick.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much for making it to the 8:15 keynote. I really appreciate everybody showing up today. And let's get this started. Okay. So I own a pizzeria in Portland, Oregon called Lovely's 50/50. And at this point, it's a little over 15 years old. And but my family and I have owned restaurants for almost 20 years, or over 20 years in Portland also. It started out with a more typical restaurant. We didn't have pizza. My partner was the chef of it. And I'll show you this here. But I grew up in Portland, Oregon. And eventually, when I got old enough, I went to college. And I went to art school. I chose art school. I always liked fine arts, painting, and drawing. But my job during that time was working in the student-run cafe. And I started to really like that just as much as doing any kind of art projects or painting. And I had several friends at the time say to me, it seems like you really like, concocting the menu for the student-run cafe a little bit more than you even like painting and drawing. And it kind of rung home. I thought, that's really actually true. So eventually, I moved back to Portland to be with my family, and I always just felt a real kindred spirit there, and I couldn't wait to move home. And I ended up working for a company called Adidas, doing pattern making and fashion design for them. And I really liked the job. I did have some creativity, but I definitely had a hard time fitting into the corporate aspect of it. And after about 3 years working there, I started to miss working in restaurants, miss working in places that serve food. And believe it or not, this house gave me the idea to start a restaurant. It was about a mile from where I lived at the time, and it was for sale. And growing up in Portland, there were always restaurants and houses. And so I knew that they could be turned into restaurants pretty easily. And especially a lot of them were in mixed-use areas, as was this one. This was in an industrial area. And everything around it had been torn down. It was actually just on its own little piece of land. And it was for sale for $100,000. And I somehow, and I think I was about 25 at the time, just thought, would you take $80,000 for it? And they said yes. So the next hurdle was getting through the inspection of this house and convincing the woman that I was going to plan on living there, which she believed also. Okay, so we ended up buying this house, and this is what the work that it entailed. We took it down to the studs, me and my family. We did hire also a professional contractor because we needed help, but we saved money by doing it this way. And it was pretty destroyed. But after, I think it took about a little over a year of construction, and we ended up opening a restaurant in it. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, like I said, my partner was the chef of this restaurant. It wasn't actually Hawaiian food, it was called Lovely Hula Hands. But we served more basic fare. We did have like some different Thai food and hamburgers and stuff like that. It was sort of the like culmination of what I imagined a Portland restaurant to be. And we had, of course, secondhand dishes, secondhand furniture, and it was really cute. It had about 22 seats, I think, which, is not actually the best business plan. And we were full right away most nights with a big wait, and it was just hard to make it work with such a small space. But we really loved it, and we put our hearts into it, and we made it work. But a couple years later, just about maybe a half mile up the street, there was a bigger building that came for sale. And it was an old flower shop, and it was equally destroyed inside as the first house. But we knew from experience that we could make it work and, do some of the work ourselves. We hired the same contractor, and we ended up fixing it up. And this is the interior shot from a long time ago. So this restaurant had about 50 seats. It had 2 dining rooms. One of them was upstairs, and that's where the kitchen was also. So my sister and I ran the front of the house, and we would run up and down the stairs and get a really good workout, basically carrying dishes of food and seating people up there. And it was also really cute and fun. And about this time, we had a different chef to run this restaurant. And he had worked at Chez Panisse and done a lot of farm-to-table food and had really good relationships with farmers. And so he set up a program for us where we went and worked at different farms in Portland. This is one of them. And I used to take my daughter when she was a kid, and we'd go help out. And the farms were happy to have our help mostly. They mostly were like, don't overpick this. They're sort of strict with the different rules. But I started to see how much more beautiful it was to work with farm produce and how great it was just to support people in your community. And these farms are probably about 20 miles from Portland. So it opened up my eyes to seasonal cooking, along with our menu is very seasonal and incorporated all the farm produce also. And around this time too also, we used to take research trips to California and go to Chez Panisse and other farm-driven pizza places. And I started to really love pizza when I saw it through this lens, and just love the simplicity of it and the dough and, how inventive people could be. So after the recession in 2009, our restaurant was a little bit fancy, and we started to hear people say, oh yeah, I come there every year for my birthday. And we started to have kids, and we started to think, it would be nice to have a little bit more casual restaurant where people could come every week. We definitely wanted to hear that more than we come once a year. And so we started, and the other thing that happened was that our chef moved on and opened his own restaurant. And we went through a couple different chefs running the kitchen, and it started to become clear to us that this was not a good sustainable operation to have a chef that wasn't invested in our place. And I started to think, I wonder if I could cook. I had developed a really good palate working with the chef, and so I started to really know what I liked, and that was really good. I think that was a good starting point. And I started to cook at home more. And I started to think, I really like this dish, I'm gonna try making it at home. And I would get pretty good results, and I thought, okay. And even the chef would say, you did pretty good. You made carbonara, that's pretty advanced. And I was like, yeah, it seemed easy and it worked out well. Okay, so in 2010, we closed our sweet restaurant and opened up a pizza place right next door. And our original plan was to have both, but we decided to focus on the more casual restaurant just in terms of the economy. And so we opened Lovely's 50/50. And the name it kind of symbolizes an ownership between me and my sister, 50/50, although my mom is also an owner. But it also symbolizes the split of our menu, which is ice cream and pizza, 50/50. And so I started to think, I wonder, I had a lot of the kitchen crew from our restaurant that was next door, they just moved over. And I started to wonder if they could kind of help me with some of the cooking. There was a person that took over the pizza part because I had never baked bread or dough and made dough in my life. And so he did the pizza part, and I focused on salads, and I made all the ice cream. And I started to really love it. I just thought, this is so fun, and people really liked the menu. They responded to it really well. And so a couple years later, when he left, I thought, okay, I'm going to take over the pizza. And it was really point blank. He left suddenly. I just jumped in and sort of started to just do what he did with dough, which was an all-white dough, active dry yeast, short fermentation. The second it hit room temperature, it exploded, and it was like pretty hard to work with. So right away, I realized I wanted to change that. And so I got myself a copy of tartine bread. In my travels to California, I'd been to Tartine. I'd had their famous country loaf. I thought it was amazing. I loved it. I had watched, several videos about Tartine and Chad Robertson making bread around his surfing schedule, and I was just totally charmed by the whole thing. And I thought, okay, if this bread is flexible and I can make it work for pizza, I'm going to try it. So I started to make bread every day. And we served it with soup initially and just kept the same pizza kind of going. And eventually, I started to, it didn't take very long. A couple months went by and I started to think like, okay, I love this too. This is really fun. And so one day, I just changed over the pizza dough. It was actually pretty bold. I just made a giant batch of tartine bread and tried it. And that first day, it worked pretty well, actually, surprisingly. And so I just started to fine-tune it from there. And I also changed over to sourdough. That was what the tartine bread was made of. Okay. And around this time, too, I heard about a mill and a grain grower in Oregon that was growing a wheat called Edison. And that it was really good for pizza because it simulated white flour. And it had a really light touch to it. And it was a really bright color. And so the sort of legend was that they were using it to make bread for schools so that the kids would think it was white bread. And I thought, oh, that'd be good for pizza, keep some of the bright white for pizza dough. Okay, so here's some of the details about it. It's a hard white spring wheat. It has a pretty high protein content, light golden color. So I heard about this. And I heard that it was in Oregon. I couldn't believe it. And I just, called them up. And I'm pretty sure that Tom himself answered the phone. And I said, hi, I have a pizza place in Portland, and I heard you have a really great pizza flour. And they were like, yeah, we don't have very much of it. We could maybe deliver to you. You'd have to get a pretty big order. I was like, yeah, I'll take like 30 bags. I'll take as much as you want to bring. And I talked them into delivering to us, which was great. And also came to find out they had many different flours. So I started to develop my dream pizza dough. And that was based on the tartine bread dough. I started to also realize that with Edison, you could really up the whole grain content. So I just tried the day I got the flour, I just tried a pizza dough that was 40% Edison, 60% white flour. And it was beautiful. And this is my starter, Jake, and some of the pizza balls here. And yeah, so these days I do still factor in about 40% of the camas flour to our dough. And it's a combination of Edison, spelt, and hard red spring wheat. And we also use 60% central milling, mostly artisan baker's craft and some hard mountain. And our dough is really strong. It's lively. We do have to adjust the hydration of it pretty consistently when our flour lots change. But that's become kind of the fun part. My staff will be like, there's a couple lot changes. We're going to have to look at this the next few days. So everybody really pays attention to, and it's really part of the whole process, which has really been really fun too, and nice to include. It's an intuitive practice. Okay, so there it is. Yeah, my dream dough, local flour, sourdough with whole grains. And yeah. So at this point, I started to hone in the dough, and I started to feel like, okay, I am feeling more confident. I like this. But a lot of times when people came to the pizzeria, they would say like, I'm from New York, so, and your pizza's really good, and I know because I'm from New York. And I thought like, wow, I've never had New York pizza. Or someone would say, I'm from New Haven. And I was like, oh no, I've never been to New Haven. And I started to think, I need to get out into the world and see different pizzas. And so researched some pizza styles, and also I wanted the inspiration. So these are some very old photos I took of pizza on that pizza tour. So hit New York. These are all the places that I checked out on that first day. I was really excited to go to Scar's because I'd heard he was like milling his own flour. I wanted to go to DeFara, and I went there on a day that he was making pizza, so that was really cool. I got to see him stretch our pizza. Razza, another sort of kindred pizza maker. Una Pizza, classic. Ops, lots of vegetables on pizza. And Totono for the classic sauce on top. That was exciting. Okay, and then also hit New Haven, hit the pizzas, and I thought those were beautiful and really, really tasty also. Okay, these are some of the West Coast pizzas I tried too. The Cheese Board, very cool sourdough pizza place that's collectively owned. Chez Panisse and their little pizzas. Usually white pizzas with vegetables on top, kind of like me. Emilia's with sauce on top, and also the baker, Mike Zukowski, making a whole grain pizza at the Sonoma Farmers Market. That was exciting. And I also somehow had the audacity to just send Chris Bianco a DM to see if I could come work there for a day. And he said no, but he did. He did actually meet me at his pizza place and drove me around the entire day and showed me all his different restaurants, which I thought was so sweet. And I met his mom, and that was an amazing experience. And I got to eat his pizza, which also blew me away. I just loved it. Okay, then I also went to Italy and checked out different pizzas. I'm lucky enough to have an Italian friend that gave me the deluxe tour, and I'm also lucky enough to have hung out with Franco Pepe, and who also gave me the deluxe tour, stayed at his pizza place in Caiazzo, and got to try his wonderful pizza there. Okay, these are sort of some lesser known whole grain pizzas in Milan. And these were really cool to see. This top one that's red is actually a beet base, and it has fennel and olives on it. And this place actually had like 3 different starters that they used, and you could choose from 3 different whole grain doughs. I thought that was amazing. I don't know how they even accomplished that, but that was really fun to see. Lots of pizza with like fresh greens on top, cabbage. So yeah, these are the ones that you don't really hear about as being Italian, but they definitely exist. And of course, we had to hit Banchi. These were amazing, use of vegetables on top too. I loved these. And also Forno Brisa in Bologna, which is another of the Taglia pizza types. Okay, also in Sicily, there was another few whole grain pizza places. Che Vox, that's actually in Mount Etna, and in Palermo, Perciasacci, which is not there anymore, but there's another one. So yeah, I was happy to see this, and I felt like I really got sort of an encyclopedic idea of what was out there if people wanted to come to me and say, I'm from, here, and this is the pizza style, and I'd say, okay, great, yeah, I know the reference at this point. Okay, so then the vegetables came. And at this point, we'd always been using vegetables on pizza. So it wasn't anything, too new, but I started to think of like how I could do more inventive combinations in light of all these different pizzas that I just had. And these days, this is my rig for the farmer's market, because even though we work with probably 10 different farmers and they deliver a lot of produce to us, if you want the really special stuff, you have to go to the farmer's market. It's good to be the first one there, and it's good to just bring a big bag and this is the action you want, putting the vegetables in there to get them first. So in Portland, we have a really amazing world-class farmer's market also, and we have a very moderate climate. And so all year round, we can get vegetables, which is amazing. And so very lucky to live there. This helps my process for sure. So I'll show you some of the things we got to work with here. Yeah, this is a winter stall. So you can see all the different chicories, cabbages, and roots that are available even right now. Yeah, it rarely freezes, so this is more of a summer market with all the peppers, and just show you some of the variety here. Yeah. Their winter shot. Coming soon. Okay. And I started to be also just really hoping for things that would be in the winter time when things are like just a little less plentiful. And there are so many farmers working to accomplish this for restaurants and just the population of Portland and country. And I'm really, really lucky to be involved in, helping farmers select what to grow. Goosefoot greens. Yeah. Those are foraged hedgehogs. And yeah, you can see puntarelle, different types of squash, melons. Okay, yeah. So the other important thing here is to build these relationships and have a really tight community. So there's some of the farmers we work with. And yeah, at this point, I've made a lot of personal friendships with farmers in Portland. They'll definitely text me and be like, can you take 20 pounds of sprouting Rob? Can you take this? Yes. And I'm like, yes, we can. Bring it over. I really try to help them out with things that they have extra of, and since we change the menu every day, that's been pretty easy for us to do. And I'm also lucky enough to work with a group called Culinary Breeding Network that works to pair seed breeders with chefs. And so a lot of times seed breeders are breeding seeds for resilience in climate and different things that they think are important, but sometimes they don't get the feedback of what actual people cooking with them want. And so this organization pairs you, they have many different events, and they pair you with a seed breeder, and you sort of take on whatever that person is breeding, and you show people what you can do with it. Like I've worked with barley. This is a barley ice cream I made where I sprouted it, flaked it, malted it, and showed all those different flavors that come out of it in the ice cream. And then these things get given back to the plant breeders, the information of what chefs are looking for, and it helps them make decisions on how to breed plants. This was another crop that I worked with called blue fenugreek, that it tastes a lot like maple syrup, and I had a farmer that was growing it, a different varietal of it, and I was using it on pizza, and I loved it so much that we wanted to find one that grew well in the Pacific Northwest. And on a visit to Italy, I found one baker that was using it in his classic bread in South Tyrol. And so we gathered seeds from him, brought them back to the US, gave them to a seed grower called Uprising Seeds, and they grew them out. And these seeds are available now for the first time in the US, and they're very good on pizza. Okay, so the other thing is cheese. I work with a cheesemonger who gets in different types of cheeses all the time. Same thing, you can kind of text them and they send out a fresh sheet every week to tell you what's available. And that's been a really good thing for when vegetables change really quick and we need to change the cheese really quick to accommodate different flavors. So yeah, other than the more classic pizza cheeses, I like to include cheeses from all over. And then one of our main cheeses, though, comes from Trout Lake, Washington. And it's an organic cheese, cow's milk cheese, that's kind of similar to Fontina. And these folks have a lava tube where they age it. And so this is probably the cheese that we go through most. Okay, the other thing I love to do is foraging. And I work with a forager who is the same thing. He just goes out and gets whatever's growing at the time. And I also like to forage lots of things myself and seek out nettle patches on mountaintops like this. And so, yeah, so I really like to working with the seasonal menu. Like the first moment things come into season, I love to get it and highlight it just because it keeps like the kitchen excited. It keeps all the customers excited. So the second I think the nettles are up on this hill, I'll go get them. There's more of them and some thistles that also grow in the same place. And mushrooms. In Oregon, we have lots of wild mushrooms, lots of chanterelles, too many most of the time. And so, yeah, I find also hedgehogs, porcini, and these just complement what the forager brings us. I can't possibly supply the whole place as we go through about 100 pounds a week when these are in season. Okay, yeah, the other thing I like to do, since we use 100% farm produce at Lovely's. So even though we have winter's farmers markets, we have winter farmers growing lots of different crops, we need to preserve stuff in order to keep the menu diversified in the winter. So I like to make this ferment, which is a mixture of hot peppers and carrots. The carrots just basically take on the flavor of the hot peppers and make it so it's not just overall too spicy. And once we ferment these for about a week, just a lacto ferment with salt, we puree them all down and freeze them. And so we can have this sauce for the whole week or for the whole year. And then we mix it with capers and olives, and a lot of times we'll also ferment tomatoes, but we can also use canned tomatoes for it. And this is really our sort of go-to pizza in the wintertime. The other thing I like to do is dry Astiana tomatoes. When these come into season in September, I dry about 3,000 pounds of them. It's a very busy time to do it. And I have several farmers growing these out for us, and I have 4 Excalibur dehydrators that are pretty much going the whole time in the back room. And these, we just ran out of these, starting using them in November. And so that 3,000 pounds only lasts about 3 or 4 months. But like I said, it gives us another pizza for the menu that has a seasonal aspect to it in the winter. Okay, yeah, so this is our current menu. It might be kind of hard to read, but yeah, we basically have 7 pizzas at all times with lots of soups and vegetables in the appetizer section. And we just have 1 red pizza. We just keep a classic mozzarella pizza. Basil in the summer, oregano in the winter. And the rest of them are white pies. And they're heavily topped with lots of vegetables, and each pie has like 3 or 4 different cheeses to sort of bring out the different flavors in there. And originally we started with a wood-fired oven, but that became pretty difficult as far as sourcing cured wood, sourcing dried wood, sourcing hardwood, and we started to just burn through so much wood I couldn't quite reconcile that with the climate concerns. So we switched over to electric Pizza Master, and it's been great. I think it gives, if not exactly the same, even a better result, and it's much more efficient and easy for us to make lots of pizzas. We especially used this during COVID, where we needed to be firing 100 pizzas in 3 hours. And that was great. It was a great switch for us. Okay, so this is current day Lovely's. It seats about 50 people. That's our small crew of 20. And we have very little turnover. I don't think I've hired a kitchen person in 3 or 4 years. And I've had some people who work with us for 10 years now. So, I really just try to foster a lot of input from people. I try to make it a really comfortable job. I really try to just be an example of calm, no emergencies, and everyone working together to get things done. And I think it's really worked. And we do have our own little family going there, which has been really nice too. And at this point, we have several generations of people working there. We have 3 sisters that work for us, and now we have some of their sons working for us, which is really cool. There's me. And we usually make between 100 and 160 pizzas a night. It's pretty, it's not tons and tons of pizza, but since the pizzas are a little bit bigger and they take a little longer to top with all the different cheeses and other toppings, pretty much the maximum that we can actually put out in 5 hours is 160 pies. So pretty small also. So let's show you some of these guys here. Okay, these are some of the loveliest pies. Yeah, we have like shell peas, shaved potatoes. We make a pesto with like pea tops, sorrel, and goat cheese, and a lot of times like to put like fresh flowers on the top. I like the idea of people getting a pizza that's just extremely beautiful and also really delicious. So with a visual arts background, I find that part to be really fun too. This is a pizza with a farm egg and mustard flowers. Yeah, this is a really fun one. Okay, yeah, this one has shell peas and zucchini on it. And I also like to kind of ride the line between too big of a topping and too small, because I think that it's fun to sort of have that balance of like what will work on a pizza. And might be surprised that works on pizza. Okay, these are some goosefoot greens with the fermented sauce. And goosefoot greens are a great green. They're like spinach, but they don't bolt in the summer. They like warm temperatures. It's another pie with potatoes and tomatoes. This is a corn pie with sage and fermented corn cream. And another pizza with double potatoes and pesto. This is a spring rib pie. This actually has fenugreek and goat cheese on it. Another tomato confit pie with shaved squash and blue flowers. Yeah, this box on the lower right is one of the boxes we get from our farmers of flowers. Pretty easy to work with that. James Rocket and yogurt. This is the pie we have right now that has Jerusalem artichokes, watercress, raclette, and a Meyer lemon dressing. Pizza with black trumpet mushrooms, wild black trumpet mushrooms, horseradish cream, and kohlrabi. And this is Brussels sprouts, farm egg. It has a nettle cheese and leeks. And this is a radicchio pizza, fresh radicchio on top. It also has like a mustard dressing. And this is the pie that uses all of our Astiana tomatoes. Okay, so at this point, yeah, it's really come to be a culmination of so much hard work put into this restaurant between me and my family. And I just feel very honored to have gotten so many opportunities and so much support from everybody. I have just some of the different pizza events we've done, and yeah, I got accolades from Modernist Pizza. I've got to make pizzas at Mozza Pizzeria, where we made 300 pizzas in one night. That was fun. Worked with Ann Kim now, Chris Bianco, Netflix Pizza. Eventually I got Chad Robertson from Tartine came in for pizza. That was exciting. And yeah, done different tours for Breville and things like that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. It's going to do question and answer period. If you have a question, you can raise your hand.
Hi there.
Hi.
Whoa. My bad. I thank you so much for the art of pizza that you bring into the world. I just wanted to ask, like, how are you planning pizzas day of, week before as you pick up stuff at the farmer's market, or what's your kind of inspiration process?
Yeah, it always is day of. We print the menu every day, and so we're lucky in that way to just be able to change things on a dime, which is great. But with the way that it works and sort of the short run of things, it's almost like I have a certain amount of pizza slots and I know like which ones will fit in there and we can go from like kale to, collards this way. And so that makes it pretty easy to change. It's hard for people to get used to when they first start working at Lovely's. They're like, it just becomes a rhythm though. And I think like the more you do it, the more it works. And you just have to be ready to change it. And you have to be ready for things to change kind of halfway through the night sometimes. And so I just keep that flexibility there. And it becomes pretty easy.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll tell her. Yeah.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, I wanted to say I was really enamored with your piece on Chef's Table on Netflix. It seemed like a really nice piece, but after this presentation, it feels like they left a lot of stuff out. Like, how do you feel about the piece?
Yeah, I mean, they have to curate it. They have their own vision for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job of listening to me, but like I said, it's not 100% real life. They have to make what they want to be like the good story of things, and they put the arc in a different place than maybe I would. But overall, it was really fun to do. And I have actually just only watched it when it first came out, so I can't really remember exactly what's in it. But yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, good
Hi.
morning. Thank you so much for that. That was fantastic. So your pizzas are visually stunning, and I think to your point, it relates back to your art background. So they're so beautiful. I'm just curious for those in your restaurant that are making your pizzas, how do you encourage them to take on that same passion? Do you have any kind of tips on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is strange, but there's 2 other women who make pizza besides me. So there's 3 of us making pizza. And so one of them's worked for me for over 10 years, and one of them's worked for me for like 4 years now. And so, like, they're pretty tuned in. They're both really, really amazing cooks and pizza makers in their own right. And so they fall right into it. I'm really lucky. I mean, I don't really have to we communicate like this, we communicate through telepathy pretty much. But I do wonder, at some point, yes, when I have to train someone new or fold someone in, because before I just had one other pizza maker for many years, for 10 years, and so there were just 2 of us. And yeah, I'm really, really lucky with my team. But I do think about ways to train people in that way, like you're saying, and I think it's just a thing where you have to be there all the time. That's part of the small business part. And you have to trust other people too, to make decisions when you're not there. And so I think that's part of the thing. Those are the things I focus on when it comes to that. Yeah.
Just a follow-up, I was going to ask, how do you ever get to leave? But that kind of answered it. And it seems to me that part of your journey is just following your own curiosity with local vendors and farmers and stuff. So what's your next curiosity, and what is the thing that you want to do and see in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because most people would, in my position, look for the next restaurant project or something. But my sister and I, we can't really imagine having 2. And or really expanding in any way. We did open on Monday nights after COVID, and that was a big jump for us just to add the extra night. I think we just keep it we keep it so tender, and so just family run that there's no big expansive project coming. And for me, it's more I'm going to spend more time picking nettles, probably. That's probably, something that I'm more interested in doing. And also, as things have relaxed for me and I have more support and help and staff, it's been really good to like lean back into being home a little more and being with my kids. And I mean, that part's been really important to me too, because, you know, owning a small business and getting up from the ground and learning to make pizza like I did involved being there every day, missing out on some of that stuff. And so I think that's for me what's been most rewarding of being successful is being able to have more free time and cook more at home and be there for my kids. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey.
I love how quickly your menu moves with the season and what you just mentioned about being day to day.
Yeah.
Are there ingredients that you found to be so challenging that you haven't yet figured out the right way to work with them?
Oh, yeah. There's some pizzas that we won't be having at Lovely's again, probably. Strawberries on pizza? Didn't get that to work very well. But the good thing is when they don't work on pizza, they usually work on ice cream. But yeah, I think at this point too, I've really like come to hone down on the greatest hits. And I've heard Chris Bianco say that before too. You know, that like, even though it seems a little simpler sometimes, and sometimes we don't have some of the weirder pizzas just because we do have a way high volume. We can't get marigold flowers for 50 marigold flower pizzas. You know, like honing it down into the ones that really work well and that people really like and are just a fantastic like flavor combination is something that's happened to us with maturity too. And just, you know, being comfortable with that. But yeah, so and also after COVID, a lot of the farmers don't grow the really stranger things. I think they had the same reckoning, like we just have to make like the classics here. But in some ways, I mean, I've come to think of it as just being a good thing, you know, a more simplified version. And yeah, I think there's a lot of ingredients that don't work on pizza. I have had people say, you'll put anything on pizza, and I'll be like, no, that's not true. That's not true.
Hello.
Hi.
I have more of a fun question for you.
Okay.
What did you want to be when you were younger, and what would your younger self say if you told her you are a pizza maker now?
Yeah, that was way off my radar. When I was little, my mom actually did make pizza, like sheet pan pizza, and I really liked it, but I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is something I want to do when I grow up. I think that at a young age, I realized I really liked working in restaurants. And so that part is not so surprising, but I didn't see myself being able to run a kitchen like I do now. And I think I'd be pretty surprised. And yeah, growing up, you know, I wanted to be like a painter. So it's probably not that different. But I think the pizza thing would have been a huge shock to me at some point, even up into my 20s. I wouldn't have realized that. Yeah, and like finding the love for that, it was a big surprise. I think at first when I started to make pizza at Lovely's, I thought I'm gonna keep making ice cream and salads and running on the front of the house, and someone else is gonna make pizza. But within the first couple months, I was like, I actually really like this. This is, you know, and so I think I would have been surprised if you told me I'd be making pizza even when I opened the pizzeria. So yeah, it's a surprise. It's a happy surprise.
Hi, I was really blown away by your artistry watching Chef's Table. And you're an artist, and pizza is your canvas. And today's presentation absolutely validated that. I feel very strongly that your pizza art needs to be documented in a book format.
Oh.
How do you feel about a book project in the future?
Yeah, I am actually writing a cookbook. Yeah. So that's one project I've been working on a lot too. Yeah, and that's been really fun too. I think this past 2 years, I've really been like writing a lot of recipes and getting really good at that, because before we just winged it, you know, like whatever sauce was just like whatever, however we made it that day. And so the importance of like consistency and being able to convey to people like how to do things, I think is really something I've gotten really good at the past couple of years too, which is fun. But thank you, that's very sweet.
Hey, good morning. So of course it's worked out in hindsight, but I'm curious when you switched over from wood-fired to deck electric, if there was any pushback from your customers.
I mean, people still write reviews like, this is great wood-fired pizza. Somehow they make it all the way through the whole process of eating at Lovely's and still think it's wood-fired. But I was worried about that. And I miss cooking wood fired. I loved it. I think we all got really good at it too, and just having the different ways of working with wood. It's such a beautiful way to cook, and it makes such beautiful pizza. And I knew, and even like I've had the same oven guy for like 15 years, and we miss it together. We're like, oh, that was so great. But then we think like, oh yeah, but what if you had to like go in the back and push up a giant thing of wood right now? And he's like, no. And I was like, what if you didn't have enough little like hardwood kindling to get, to get the flame? And he's like, no. We're both like very, very certain that it was such a good move, despite missing it a little bit. And the Pizza Master has really come through for us. We can hone it in and dial it in in such a, all the little details are so easy to make work with that. And I don't know, I think if I get the chance to work on like a little wood-fired oven, it's really, really fun for the day. But yeah, I don't miss the upkeep with it. I don't miss wood delivery day at all. Yeah.
Hi there.
Hi.
I wanted to say that I think the way you do things at Lovey's is really fascinating. And I was wondering, what made you want to do things on a day-to-day basis rather than having a consistent menu? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what kept it really interesting. That's what keeps it interesting for me. And like, if you're going to work with farmers and work with these small scale growers, producers, you have to do it that way just because you have to be flexible and willing to go with it that way. And yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly just to keep my interest in it, my staff's interest in it, and to just keep it fresh, keep it fun. We do have some pizzas that we have on year round, mostly it's just the mozzarella pizza, I guess. But yeah, I mean, there's some consistency there. But it just becomes a really natural process. And then the excitement's there, like we got nettles, like we got chanterelles, we got this. And it keeps everybody pumped, including the front of the house. And it keeps the customers pumped too. Like people, if you post a pizza on Instagram, this is the first day for this pizza, people will order it and come in and get it. And so I think that part keeps everybody interested also.
I remember earlier you were saying that you were making burgers and you were doing Thai food. What made you transition to pizza?
Well, so my partner was the chef of the restaurant at that time, and he was just really cooking his menu. And my sister and I were there to support it, as from the front of the house. And just having that traditional restaurant was great and it worked. But I think going down to the Bay Area and eating pizza at places like Chez Panisse and Pizzaiolo and seeing people kind of work with that same seasonality on pizza, I started to think like, oh, maybe we can have it all here. And we can have the bread breaking tradition, we can have the vegetables, we can keep everything here in this very, it's a little more simplified. And I just thought, yeah, pizza and ice cream, great combination. And just more casual also. I think anytime you're constructing entrees, the price goes up and people see it as a little more fancy, a little more special occasion. And my mom actually wanted to have a hamburger place, but I've actually worked at a hamburger place and I realized that would be flipping burgers and all the stuff that comes with that. I didn't want to do it, but I was like, but a pizza place might be the same vein as far as casual, sort of fast casual, but also we could incorporate the restaurant parts of it in there too, because we like giving service, we like having a wine list, and we like the formalities that come with that too. So yeah, I just had a lot of great pizza, and originally the casual restaurant was going to support the other restaurant, but after we had the turnover in chefs and everything, I realized I didn't want to be running a place where I had to just continually hire a chef. So yeah, it worked out better for us.
Hi, ma'am. Back up to the oven. When you looked at, obviously you did your research, but did you look at gas or gas assist ovens versus the electric, or did you even consider that? Or
our building doesn't have gas, and so
that wasn't an option for you.
Yeah. I didn't have to think about that too much. And trying to think, I think I had been to a pizza place in San Francisco that had a pizza master, one of the first ones I've ever seen. And I've worked with them on events here at Expo. And I just knew that we could get that sort of detail. And so I didn't really look at other models because I had worked on them here. And I just knew they worked really well for my dough because I just brought my dough and got to try it. So that was nice. Yeah, I didn't spend tons of time looking at the different options. But I would feel totally comfortable with another option too. Gas, I think it would be great. I've never actually worked on a gas pizza oven somehow, but yeah.
Sarah, thank you for inspiring us all. You've put a lot of work into your dough, and most of your pizzas, or I think all, are vegetarian.
We do have meat. We have sausage for pizza.
Okay. Because of vegetarian, you get a lot of gluten-free people requesting that. And how do you mitigate that question?
We do, but not that many. We do. I wouldn't even know how to start with that. So that's another thing. And also, like, there's just gluten everywhere. Like, we don't even want people who are gluten intolerant to get ice cream because our ice cream machine is next to our mixer. You know, it's like, I don't see how we would possibly pull that off. But I know a lot of people do. And I know it's possible. But yeah, I just think we've been lucky enough not to have to do that. You know, which is great. But yeah, I'm not sure how that works, the gluten-free sourdough. I don't know. Yeah.
I just had a quick question. So it's kind of a two-parter. So your ice cream, you know, you have a lot of freedom of experimenting with farmers and the seasons that and the bounty that comes with each. You know, do you find as much creativity goes into your ice cream as much as your pizza? Are you able to show as much of what the farms produce in your ice cream as much as the pizzas? And is there a season that you find particularly challenging? I know that winter, you know, for produce can be challenging, but I see that you shine almost the most in winter because of such, you know, difficult produce to work into the menu items. So yeah, any one that you find challenging and one that you love most?
Yeah. Okay. So for the ice cream, yeah, I think we are able. We have so many good fruit growers. So yeah, the ice cream, there's 6 flavors. It's a little bit simpler of a program for us. But yeah, we get tons of berries, tons of different cool herbs to infuse. It's really, really fun to do the ice cream part of it. And like I said, if farmers have stuff that doesn't work for pizza, it'll probably work for ice cream. So it's a good way to like just absorb all of the different things that people grow, which is good. And it's so delicious too. But okay, the harder, you know, winter is harder. And actually right now is the hardest for me because if you think about like salad greens, I mean, it's not, we have pizza, but we sell a lot of appetizers too. And things start to get really lean before spring hits. And so even right now, like this week, we're going to run out of potatoes for some reason. Like no one has potatoes right now, or the ones that I want for pizza. They might have like fingerlings or something that's not the one I want. So it does happen, and it becomes like a little bit of a pinch to like make that jump. And yeah, I mean, right now we're really pushing the creativity for the pizzas and using like still storage crops and things like that. So yeah, there is totally a hard season, and you know, winter is hard too. Also because if it does snow, the city kind of comes to a halt, and we have to make sure we have like cases of stuff in the walk-in to be able to pull from. And then it's just hard to make that transition too, because when spring hits, it hits, you know, huge, and we'll have like cases of kohlrabi, cases of cabbage, and we're like, we really want to switch to spring, but we still have some of this stuff to go through. So yeah, that's the challenging part. And late winter, early spring is the hardest one, for sure. Yeah, we run out of our dried tomatoes. We run, you know, but you know, it's a challenge, but make it work.
Good morning.
Hi.
What is your fermentation schedule, and how challenging is it to work with that in Oregon?
Yeah, so our dough is, it's 24-hour dough. It can be 48, it can be 72, but basically we mix at noon, and we do a bulk cold ferment. And so we mix all the dough. We finally got a spiral mixer. We used to mix in a Hobart batch by batch by batch, mix in the salt by hand. I mean, it was like and then everybody got tennis elbow, so we had to switch to the spiral mixer. So yeah, we mix everything, we auto lease, Then we do a couple turn and folds even with the spiral mixer, and then we do a bulk cold ferment overnight. And then first thing we pull the dough out, bring it up to room temperature, ball it, and then use it that night. So 24 hours-ish. Yeah, I mean, since all of our flour lots changed and the weather changes and everything changes, we just watch it like a hawk, basically, and a lot of communication. But there's definitely days where, like, you know, all the dough won't proof by 5, and so we're like putting it on top of the oven, trying to get it going. Or there's days where all of it proofs by 5, and so, you know, you just have to basically like pay a lot of attention and keep a direct connection with what's going on. But that's the fun part too, I think. Yeah.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for the presentation, and I hate that I missed some of it, but I have 2 questions. The first one is about your ingredients. How do you, you're not following like any kind of convention when it comes to, you know, putting the ingredients together. You're kind of going with it, you know, the way you feel things might taste well together, I guess, if that's how it seems. So my question is, how do you figure that out, like on a day-to-day basis? Like, oh, that's gonna work great with this, and is it just self-inspired, or do you?
Yeah, I went through a lot of trial and error in the first few years, for sure. But you know, I definitely use the grow together, go together motto.
Okay.
And I also use, like, I can actually just text my cheesemonger too and just be like, I have, you know, brassicas, and he gives me like 3 ideas, you know. So I think that helps, but it's a lot of trial and error. And I mean, at this point, like I said, I've kind of honed down the good combinations that we'll use over the year, through tasting it, through trying it, to seeing what people like, you know.
And then the second part would be, how do you manage your costs? So if your ingredients are changing every day and you have to print a new menu every day, then you know, how do you manage the pricing and the costs?
I'm also lucky, I didn't mention this in the keynote, but my mom, along with being part owner of the restaurant, is also our accountant. And so I just say, is everything okay? And she says yes. I mean, it's a little sloppy on our end, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a numbers person in that way, and I really don't like having to, you know, think about that too much, but we are lucky enough to make a living without having to worry about it too much. I'm sure that, you know, we could trim our costs down and have a better margin. But for me, the fun part is really sort of being indulgent with that stuff. And I think our food cost is okay. It's usually around 30%. But so it's not crazy. And I know pizza could have better for sure. But yeah, we just and I really, we have almost zero waste. I don't lose anything. Because we get farm deliveries like several times a week, and I go to the farmer's market and pick it up, I keep a very lean house. And so there's no loss. That's another important part, I think, too. We just keep on it. Keep everything really fresh and don't lose anything, and are just, like I said, changing the menu to accommodate like something that we need to use helps too. Like really, like we need to run, we have a huge amount of purple sprouting broccoli, we're gonna run it as an app tonight, or we're gonna put it on pizza, and we move it along. So that's the other part.
Hi, Susan. I was just wondering, you seem to favor a 12-inch pizza.
Yeah.
Are there other options, or is there a specific reason why you went with that size and stuff, especially with families coming in and large groups and things like that? I can see the advantage of having, you know, multiple pizzas ordered because it brings the, you know, the ticket price up and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you could shed a little bit of light on that, it'd be great.
Yeah, we do just have one size. I can't remember exactly why we landed on that one. But yeah, I mean, we have in the past had like little pizzas for kids that were a little cheaper and stuff. But after COVID, we got rid of that and we just have the one size. And yeah, I think a lot of times people get one and they're like, it's huge. So ours err on the bigger side of 12-inch, and we use like 400-gram dough ball. So, and it has a lot of whole grains and sourdough in there. So it's like when you get a pizza from us, it'll feed two, even 4 people sometimes. So I think like we're hitting the right value mark, and we usually tell people like, yeah, each pizza serves like 2 people. And so I think I haven't had actually a lot of like people wondering about different sizes and things. So I think it's like, it works in our framework too, to just have it almost like that's the sort of our relationship to having like entrees, is a pizza. And so we haven't had to like be super diverse in the different sizes. So yeah, it's easier for us. Yeah. I mean, when we had the kid size, it was even like, we're out of kids' doughs. I mean, that was even like, hard to know like how many you're going to sell in each night and stuff. So yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering if you have any tips and tricks for your staff retention.
Retention, I know. I mean, I feel really lucky because I hear people say how hard it is to keep staff. I really try to ride the balance of, instructing people and trying to help them work without without stressing them out, without making work not fun. I never want to hear someone's having a stress about work, like I just want it to be, I want to be able to resolve any conflict people have. I want to just be able to work it out and talk about it first. And I think we've been really lucky just because we're so small too, to just keep really like everyone gets along, there's friendships. My sister and I are there so much too. I think people like that makes them feel content, because we handle a lot of the bigger problems that come up. And we try to handle them quick, So I think the combination of just trying to make it like a pleasant place to work, super flexible. Like I don't worry about people being a little late, or I don't worry, we don't have these kind of things. We don't have tons of meetings. I try not to waste people's time. I send out like group texts to everybody every week that tell everybody what's going on, and they can write back any concerns. And like, these are instead of meetings. And everyone's like, great. So I think it's part of it's luck. And part of it's just trying to make it a comfortable, safe place to work, a good place to work, low drama, fix drama immediately by just diffusing it if you can. Yeah. We also pull tips. I think that helps too. Try to get everybody like sort of on the same team as far as money goes. Okay.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Thank you for sharing so much with us. Question, you mentioned making the change to a spiral mixer. What effect, if any, did that have on making your dough?
Yeah, so we just actually, because we still have our Hobart, sometimes we make dough in there too. If we like, oh, you only made 6 batches, we need 7, and they'll pull out the Hobart and make a dough. And basically, it lends a lot more strength to the dough in general. And so we're not doing as many stretch and folds as we used to because I was following that sort of tartine bread method. We just made it exactly like the bread dough for years. And so, yeah, I mean, it was kind of like switching to the Pizza Master from wood. It wasn't that hard. It was just like a similar effect. And you can just make bigger batches and the strength is a lot there. And it doesn't get the dough as heated up. And so we use like a little cooler. We use hotter water actually now with the spiral to achieve the final dough temperature. So just a couple tweaks like that, basically. But the ease of making a big batch is just great, adding, after our auto lease, just adding the salt all in one shot, not mixing it by hand has been a huge, huge body saver. Although I still don't like getting it out of there, but I can do it. Okay, anybody else? All right, thanks guys, thanks so much.